Hi, hello. Oh, I forgot to run the ad. That's why there was no ad running. Hi, hello. Uh, Flamingo, you're first. Clearly, you're not first. Congratulations to you both. I have decided a gumbo is called for. It is cold, and I want something warm, and I want something that I can just kind of put things in. I don't want to stress about this today. So, the gumbo is not a stress, is not a stress dish. I'm also don't have a recipe. I've got one pulled up in the background, but I barely even looked at it. What are we doing? Uh, uh, yeah. Um, yeah. So that's the plan. Chill. I mentioned on Discord I'm feeling very stressed out about current events. Um, and yeah. So hi, welcome. I will try not to give my stressed outness to you. I keep turning around to walk away, but all my stuff is already here. Um, Sticker off my pepper. How are you? Let's slide over. Let's see, we should do this in a sane order. We're doing something that I usually don't do with gumbo, and that is beef, because I found some discount beef. It's it says it's stir fry beef, which usually means long strips, and I don't really want long strips. So we're gonna pull it out, see what they look like, and any really long ones we're gonna chop down. Uh, oh, actually, if we're doing this in sane order, then I should get some shrimp thawing first. That's the first. That's the first thing. I'm going to use some of these Gulf shrimp. I haven't used them in a while. They're very flavorful. They should compete well with a beef-based, heavily seasoned stew, and we also shouldn't need a ton of them. And they are in an awkward bag that I want to get out of my freezer, so I think we're going to use perhaps all of them, because there's not that many in here. And they're definitely going to be on the freezer burned end of things, despite, yeah, we're just going to use the whole lot of them. Hi, Bookwoman. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Bob. Happy modding. Okay, we're going to thaw those. Those are going to be our shrimp component. I guess we're doing a surf and turf. Uh, but the shrimps won't need to go in. I shouldn't. Absolutely won't need to go in until very late. They'll overcook if I put them in too early. So we just need them to thaw. So I'm just going to set them back here. Floating around, being chill. Then we're going to open up our beef. Beef. Aside from current events, uh, how's everyone doing today? I've had a very busy, in addition to current events, I had a very busy weekend since the middle of last week. We were doing inventory at the store, which necessitated extra hours, and then on Sunday, late hours. Like extra late hours. Yeah, there's definitely some long pieces in here that I'm going to want to get whacked down. I don't want giant nonsense. Let's get a bowl to capture those in as well. Rather than heaping them up on the side. Gonna be a bunch of prep. Yeah, inventory. Fortunately, we timed it well this time. We didn't time it well last time, but we timed it well this time where we're still down on stock from Christmas and it hasn't re-topped up yet. So there wasn't quite as much stuff to count. Last time, the people in charge waffled around a whole bunch, and we ended up getting major restock and then doing inventory when the store was absolutely bursting at the gills with maximum stock, which took even longer and was a terrible idea. Some of these pieces are nice and well. Stir fry meat generally isn't for stewing. Generally, what it is it's trimmings off of oh, I forgot to run the pre-roll. I forgot to run the ad that I typically run at the beginning today. I was distracted. And that means we're getting pre-rolls right from the start. Normally there's a 45-minute delay, and if you arrive during the first 45 minutes of stream, there are no pre-roll ads shown to you. But if I forget to run that, there, Bookwoman, subscribed with Prime. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Using those Bezos bucks here. What was I saying? Oh, this stuff. This stuff is trimmings. When they're making a piece look nice for the meat case, they got to trim bits off. Or if they've got one that's like the wrong size, they don't throw it away. They shred the dang thing up, turn it into, depending on what it is, stir fry meat or stew meat. I already threw the package away. I think this is chuck. I think what this said was this was beef chuck for stir fry, which I would think is trimmings from a roast. It's essentially the same stuff that goes into ground beef. It's just trimmings. And that being more popular, I would imagine the vast majority of their trimmings go into ground beef. But I do like that some of it is set aside for pieces like this. You might be able to tell I'm kind of losing interest in pulling the strands out, and I'm just grabbing globs of this and giving a nice big whack through the middle to ensure that there's no pieces bigger than an easy spoon can pick up. So, what is everybody else having today? Or has had? Or will be having? Time zones. Hot mess of leftovers. Spaghetti and meatballs. Classic. Garlic herb chicken green beans. Homemade? Or is this a fancy restaurant leftovers? This is the kind of piece that I want to make sure is cut up. These long wigglers. Homemade. Nice. Okay, let's take this over to the sink, get it out of the way. We're not... I think I'm going to say just shrimp and beef. I'm not going to thaw out an additional meat and make this super extra duper meaty. Wash that knife real quick. Wash that board real quick. I could do a sausage. I could do some andouille sausage. I think we're just going to go with spices. I think we're going to rely on spices to get our maximum flavor. We will use some lard. To contribute. So, boof. Pepper. This pepper is gigantic, by the way. Huge mutant pepper. Not a bargain bin pepper, but it looks like it's about to go into the bargain bin. I don't know who's making peppers this big. We will do the silly chef's cut. Therion, hello, and welcome. How are you? Good to meet you. And of course, what's for dinner? This would have been good for stuffed peppers. You really could have loaded this one up. I personally am well. I'm quite stressed these days. As mentioned, stressed about current events. So we're doing something that is going to be comforting and chill, which is a gumbo. So that I can spend some time with you guys, which I love to do. So welcome in. I'm often much more energetic, but we're having a little bit of a down day today. I cut that wrong. Get these little bits of pith. I cut it too high or too low. If you cut it just below the stem just kind of falls off. I cut this one too low. There was too much extra holding it in place after the stem was off. Also, it's been extremely cold, and I wanted something warm and comforting. And Gumbo's warm and comforting in my book. Yeah, cold that way too. So I'm going for a just medium dice. I want some nice chunks. I don't want it to be just mush when we get to the end. But yeah, it got up to, what did I see it at? 9 degrees today? It's pretty good, considering recent, temperatures. Trying to do this all in one big stack is going to cause me trouble. There we go. Okay, one enormous mutant teenage bell pepper. I was talking. Yes, I was talking in Fahrenheit. I'm in Wisconsin. We've had some extremely cold weather, like even for us. Up to 9 is an increase of like 25 degrees. I'll tell you, the high temperature on Thursday, the midday high on Thursday, was -11 Fahrenheit. The overnight, we hit -31 one of those nights. That's too cold. Honestly, +9 is normal-ish. It's on the low side, but it's not like an earth-shattering event. -31, even for those of us born and bred here in the frozen north, that's pretty extra cold. Ooh, 25. Wow. Yeah, it's shorts weather there. And it was also windy for part of that, and I saw, I don't think it was here, but one day there was a report of a -45 wind chill around these parts. Which I don't know if you're aware, but at 40 is when the Celsius and Fahrenheit scales cross over each other. So it gives you some good sense of how freaking cold that is, no matter what your preferred measuring system is. But yeah, it's been quite a cold up here. I explained to someone online, not locally because they would understand, but I explained to somebody online yesterday that it was too cold to snow. And like, that's not a thing. It can't be too cold to snow. No, it definitely gets too cold to snow. It gets to the point where the air is so cold that it is just so dry that no snow happens. Snowflakes get smaller and smaller as it gets colder and colder. You get the best snow right near freezing, and you eventually get to the point where it's just too cold. Too cold. The snowflakes just don't form. At most, you get an extremely fine, like dust of ice. Celery. Celery is the other bit. Celery goes in with those guys. Gnarly looking celery. I think I'm gonna not use the gnarly one. We'll use the next one in. That's less gnarly. So I hope you've been warmer than me. I hope everyone, I hope everyone's been warmer than me. I've been pretty cold. Fortunately, my car survived. It was definitely getting into that realm of the car won't start levels of cold. Uh, Yeah, my car definitely chugged a little bit, fought with it, but it did make it each time, so glad of that. Even more glad that they would that it fired up on the other end when I had to come home from work. That really don't want to get stuck out after hours in the dark. Okay, my special edition for today, I picked up some fresh okra, which I don't often cook with, even when I'm making this type of food, this cuisine. But we're doing it today. We're biting the heads off, and then we're going chop, chop, like so. If you've never worked with okra, insides are sticky. Oh, see, we want the slime. We don't want it to be slimy, but the slime, the mucilage, is going to help thicken our gumbo. You can also eat the little stem bits. They're not my favorite. They got a weird texture, in my opinion. But I've had them on fried okra where it's just awkward to get them off. And you're like, okay, well, whatever. You can see the goo coming out of them as they stick to These are a little bit overripe, I think. Ideally, you want the seeds to be still white on the inside. Brown means that they are ripening a little bit over. You really don't want them to get like really big. Big okra and when they change color, they get woody and they become basically inedible. Okay. I'm gonna open up a reference recipe just to keep myself on a track here. Make a roux, add onions, garlic, peppers. Yeah. Well, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to saute stuff all in one pan and then transfer things into the big pot as we go. This one's a seafood one, so we're ignoring all the seafood parts. Yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. So let's get out a pan. Start working on ingredients here. What pan do I want? What pan do I want to use? I'm looking for one. I'm using this one. I'm looking for one with a light colored bottom so that I can really see how we develop our roux, because I'm going to go for a pretty dark roux today. And we have some rendered fat. Some of our pork jowl renderings right here that we will be using to amp up our flavor. I'm talking about spring gardening already. I suppose you got to plan out. And I suppose if you're further south, then it's probably spring is much closer to you than it is to me. A goodly dollop. Do you put butter? Butter or bacon fat? We're going to just do bacon fat. We're going to just do renderings here. Because this stuff is tasty. We got, oh gosh, it was a little while ago now. I found smoked pork jowls in the bargain bin for like absolute cut rate prices. And I cooked with them. If you go back on my YouTube, you can find the old video. I archive all of these on YouTube. I don't recommend watching on YouTube because, boy, watching a VOD of just a live broadcast, I find very off-putting and dull, personally. But if you were super curious. Also, the link at the top is linked to my Discord. Jump in and check out photos. But we have... Pork jowls are extremely fatty. They're way fattier than normal, like, streaky bacon. So we got a lot of fat out of them. And that's what this is. This is rendered pork jowl fat. So it's... And they were only lightly salted. They were smoked, but they weren't cured. So it's not super salty, but it has some of that smoky flavor in it. We're going to melt that, and then we're going to build our roux in there. Like I said, we're going to go for a pretty dark roux. The darker you make your roux, the less thickening power it has. But the more flavor it provides. The last time I made gumbo, I went for essentially dark chocolate roux. It was almost black. It was as close as I could get to burning it without burning it as I've ever gone with a roux. Probably won't go for absolutely ink black this time. You like eyeballs and head meats and stuff. Ooh. See, I don't go for that kind of thing, but what I am is a bargain hunter, especially for proteins. And you know what ends up in the bargain bin protein-wise? All that odd stuff. All that stuff that people look at like, what's that? I don't know what that is. I'm not eating that. All that kind of stuff. So we end up with all sorts of nonsense around here. Like the pork jowls, which I already knew what those were and was just excited to see them. There's one of them in here frozen still, I think. We can revisit that later. I've got some onion, or not some onion. I've got some liver. I've got some gizzards. I freeze a lot of that stuff because I don't necessarily have an idea for it immediately. Sometimes you do, but oftentimes I don't have an instant idea for it. I do actually like liver and onions as well. I'm not very good at cooking like beef liver, big liver. I'm more of a chicken liver guy. I think they're much easier to handle. But we got all sorts of nonsense. Stick around, you'll see some nonsense. For example, I definitely need to revisit these because they've been in here a while. It's not awful. Oops, it's not awful, but some people might say it's awful spelled the other way. Sea snails. Marine snails, specifically. I got them for a weird recipe. I got them for the strange bun from Stardew Valley. Okay, we're using our soft whisk for this because I do not want to scratch up my nonstick. Although you only need the whisk initially to get that combined. I switch to a spatula. I don't know what I'm going to do with the sea snails, which is why I still have them. They've been lingering. They are vacuum frozen, so they should be good. They're probably a little bit on the freezer burn side. Snails definitely are the weirdest texture of all of the mollusks I've had. So if you're not into texture, they might put you off. They're definitely on the chewy side. Having had French-style freshwater snails, and then these marine snails, which I did taste when I was using them for the recipe. I didn't just ignore them completely. By the way, the strange bun, awful. Just terrible. Just the worst. It was actually borderline inedible. No, not borderline. It was literally inedible. It was so bad. Okay. But the land snails, the French style escargot, they put a ton of garlic butter in there, and you kind of have to because the freshwater ones, taste kind of muddy. The marine ones, the texture's a little bit chewy. They just kind of taste briny. They taste like seawater. It's such an interesting, like, blank slate of a flavor. Um, I think they'd be good in like a pasta. Uh, Personally. But yeah, so it depends what I find, but I love doing all that kind of oddball stuff. What else is in here? We've got some sushi fish. I actually have oysters in here. I actually have a little thing of oysters froze up in there as well. Um, Already, our roux is turning colors. We have a light, like latte brown forming. Because we're using bacon fat, this shouldn't brown quite as fast as it does with butter. Because when you do it with butter, the milk solids are also browning. And they risk burning. Whereas in this, the only thing in here that's browning is the flour. I've only seen whole tongue once at a butcher. Um, oh, we did lamb's heart for Valentine's Day one year. That was fun. You know, Valentine's Day is coming up. For that good reminder. I should go see if I can get something to do with heart. I feel like my skills have improved since the last time I tried to do heart. Um, Anyways, I can't get too distracted. We do not want this to burn. It is now taking on the smell of like dark toast. And what we're going to do is instead of trying to fry stuff in here, I'm going to dump this right in the big pot. And it's going to form the... Oh, you guys are over there. I forgot to move the thing. We're over here. I'm talking about the color of this, and you can't even see it. We're going for a dark brown. And then I'm just going to slap it right into the pot as is instead of sauteing other things in it. And then I'll refresh this pan with little dabs of fat because we don't really need 2 tablespoons of drippings to get the rest of the things. This is the level when I would say most people should pull it. Going any further than this, you're pushing your luck on burning. This is also a very thin one than compared to the last time I did it. Way more fat in this. Probably has something to do with using pork fat as well. But I can see that the fat is trying to separate from the flour quite a bit, so I think I'm probably just going to call that good enough. It's also smoking a little bit, which has me modestly perturbed. So let's heat off and just contribute our roux into our big pot. And for the remainder, we will be adding just a vegetable oil in little dabs. This is a very non-stick pan as well. I did not crush any garlic. I have to do that real quick. Always prep your garlic before you need it, and I forgot about it. Ooh, that's an interesting color on that garlic. Very dark yellow skins. Still nice and creamy white on the inside, but oop, and it's just barely showing a green tip trying to sprout on me. How many do we need? What's the crowd feeling on garlic today? Yay, nay? I mean, yay on garlic, but loads? Just a little bit? We're not using the whole head because then I'll run out of garlic. So then the next thing won't have any garlic. These are pretty big cloves. Four of these big chunky guys. I'm going to trim that little black spot off. I'm going with 4. Valid reason to not use all the garlic is I won't have any garlic. I do have jarlic and garlic powder that we could enlist to amp this up if we wanted. I do like a nice garlicky stew. So that's half. 4 cloves is half of this head of garlic. The remainder will go in our little garlic house. I really like this head of garlic too because it doesn't have the little tiny cloves in the middle. I hate those. I don't like dealing with those little like miniature ones that form in the middle. Little knife to trim the rooty bit. And that little spot. And yeah, then we're gonna whack them into some chunks. For crushing, because I want a full crush today. Where's my crusher? Things all get buried in here. I hear a rumble of an engine. Oh, it's the helicopter from the hospital. Makes sense. I don't know how well it's picking up. It's right overhead. So I asked, and I got a few responses, but there's new people since I asked. So, what's everyone having for dinner? Who didn't already answer, or if you want to answer again, I won't. I won't stop you from answering twice, even if you give different answers. Yeah, I really like this one. I've had a couple over the years, and this one with the fully enclosed little crusher cup is my favorite one. Although I am definitely overloading it a little bit. And we looked it up once, and we found it on, yeah, it's from IKEA. Um, because I've had other ones where the crusher had like slots on the sides, and garlic always sort of squirts up out of the sides when they have those. Use the non-blade end of your knife to scrape the bottom off. Don't run the blade over that part. It will ruin the blade. Oops. Drop the little cup. Trying to get little bits of garlic. Definitely overloaded it and kind of squirted out anyways, but yeah, it's a good one. I really like that one. Okay, you always want to crush your garlic ahead of when you intend to use it to let it really develop its flavors. Hence, doing it now. When the next step is, in fact, not cooking the garlic, but cooking the other vegetables. Oh, you know what we should put in there? While that's starting to warm up, I want some spice. I want to take a big old bite and go, spicy. And to that end, how long has the roux been going? The roux is currently off the heat. This is the heated pan. I got the roux to that level of darkness, and then I transferred it into our big pot. So the roux is currently off the heat. I'm not burning the roux, but thank you for the reminder. It's definitely the kind of thing I would do. Okay. That is quickly chopped up. 2 chile de arbol. And a few bits fell off the side of my worktop and into the trash, so it is slightly less than 2 chile de arbol. Chile de with the seeds, so this is going to be quite a bit of spice. I also have a twist in mind for today, and that is instead of applying salt, I will be using the beef powder, which has a lot of salt in it, which should amp up our beefiness at the end. Is there anything else I want to throw in this? Let those guys sizzle a little bit. The oil that I am cooking them in has already started to turn colors. And we've got a spicy spice forming. Let's come over here. I'm going to assemble a little pot of dry spices. We're not using a blend today. My oregano is dried. That'll go right on the plate. I want quite a bit of that. I think oregano is one of the main flavor components. Smoke paprika, which will provide us with color, smokiness, and a little bit of flavor, not too much. I spilled some. Into our grinder. It's just, hold on. I'm double checking that I'm not completely off base. Garlic, onion, oregano, thyme, a little bit of thyme. I suppose a little bit of thyme is the one thing that I would be skipping if I skipped it. I find thyme kind of overpowering, so we're going lighter on that than on the other one. But we're going heavy on black pepper. I am a big fan of black pepper. Let's not forget about these. They're looking a little toasty. They're looking quite toasty. So to prevent them from burning, all yonder goes in. And gets a nice saute. Ooh, and the steam coming off of it is immediately very spicy from those peppers. Beef soup powder. Is going to fill the role of salt. I don't use that. It's the flavor powder that comes from like an instant ramen packet. I don't really use it for the noodles. I really like instant ramen noodles. I don't really like instant ramen noodle flavor powders for the cheap brands. But the stuff is super useful because it's just kind of like beef flavored salt. which I don't know how I would get beef-flavored salt otherwise. Over on this side, I have added black pepper and a little bit of coriander to the grinder. Coriander I don't think is normal. Well, garlic, onion, paprika, hot pepper, smoked paprika, thyme, oregano, basil, rosemary, and bay. Bay is just going to end up in the main pot for the stewing phase. Bay. Let's chuck a couple of bay leaves in the big pot. Yes, bay leaf in the big pot. They'll get fished out at the end. Rosemary. I guess I'll throw in some rosemary. Gonna add it to our grinder because I've got long strands of it. I've also got some homegrown basil. I'll throw that in. Okay, and then we grind this. I like a little coriander. I don't like cilantro. This is a no cilantro household. But I do like a little coriander seed. This is, in fact, a coffee grinder. But I find it is good for some of the rosemary made it through, but it's good for grinding seed spices. Hi, Ryuya. Cilantro is not great on tacos. It ruins them. It ruins them dead. It makes them taste of aluminum shavings and dish soap. Yes, I do have the thing that makes it taste like that. That's the reason. I'm just going to add a smidge more beef powder. Okay, pan's actually a little bit too small for this quantity, but that should be fine. And we're just going to add all of this stuff right in here. heat is coming up just a smidge. And we will garlic the middle. What are we making? We are making gumbo. Gumbo. The seed has to my palate, a nice sort of bright, vaguely citrusy, but not really, flavor. The leaf, I just overwhelms me with the taste of. Blech. The consensus of the people of the internet is that it tastes like soap. Before I knew that, I always described it as tasting metallic. I think it has a very metallic cast to it. But it is quite strong, and it also comes through in the smell of it. On a trip to Guatemala once, passing through a market, there was a herb stand selling freshly chopped cilantro, and I could barely walk past it. It was so strong. And I think that was the point. Like, smell my delicious whatever, but whoo-wee, no, it destroyed my face. Oh, well, whatever's in the leaf that ruins it then, I guess, isn't in the seed. Because I definitely use the seed, and that's exactly what I like about it, is it's got that bright, like, it's a bright flavor. It's the best way to describe it. It's got a brightness to it. I think these guys are ready to get transferred. The herbs and the garlic are very fragrant. We are going to bring him back over. The pot might be too big, but I'd rather overshoot than undershoot. Whoa! Whoa! Hold on, I absolutely need to put water in this pot before anything burns, so... Four cups of water. We can always cook it off if we need to. Transfer that back in there, stir us in. Okay, now what was all this nonsense? What's all this then? What's all this then? Chef Pete Smith, Bob, hi, Raiders, welcome, hello. You caught me just as I was transferring our vegetables into the pot so that they can start simmering with all the herbs and stuff. What were you up to? Chef Pete, lemon chicken with a twist. Baked potatoes and Roberto's fig apple pie. Fig apple pie. I'm not a huge fan of fig, but Mm. I am a huge fan of apples, so we're making a comfort food for me. I'm making a pot of gumbo. I chose my biggest pot because I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't overfill it, even if I just started throwing stuff at it. But welcome in. Hello. I was afraid to introduce myself. I'm Jovial Jovian. We cook. Today I'm feeling kind of stressed, so I'm trying to do something relatively easy. Let's throw heat on the back one. And hey, you're just in time because the next step is more cooking. Who'da thunk? Figs from the tree. Oh my goodness. Well, that is extra, isn't it? We're going to add an additional little dab of our pork jowl drippings to the pot. Let it melt real quick. We don't need a lot here because there is some fat in the beef. Oh, yeah, I'm doing a beef gumbo. I don't know, that's not normal, but it's not illegal. I really should have picked a bigger pan. Our mildly aged bargain bin chuck trimmings. Look at me pinning a Discord link. I remembered without anyone having to tell me today. Yeah, if you're looking for photos of the nonsense, I post them in Discord. I also ask for suggestions, which sometimes I actually act on. And gadgets that I find. I haven't found any gadgets lately. I haven't been looking either, which is good because I need to rein in my spending on random nonsense. But most of the fun tools I pull out have been thrifted, and I often get them without a clear idea of what I'm going to do with them. Camera's a little dim today. I'm not sure what's causing that. So now I've got the heat on the pot in the back. We are going to get some good browning on the meat before it goes in. But I'm not super worried about getting it either completely rendered out or tenderized, because it's going to stew in the pot afterwards. I don't have a source for squirrel, so you can suggest things. I have the final say in vetoing whatever. But I love suggestions live, especially. Every once in a while, I'll do one where I just have no idea what I'm making, and I'll essentially cook whatever chat tells me to. They're very impromptu when that happens. This is a big celery. It does not fit in my crisper drawer. It does not fit in my crisper drawer very well. This should go back in the freezer since I'm not using this. But hey, coming up soon, I need to use this. What is it? It's 4 lobster claws that are getting a little freezer burned. Or possibly a lot freezer burned. Let's turn the heat up on the beef to try to skip past this stage where it's kind of boiling itself because it's in too small of a pan. Definitely should have got the big pan for this. I mean, there are squirrels out there. I'm not catching wild squirrels. uh, we have not yet risen to the level of butchering my own meat. Are you? No, you need actual heat to get them up to a boil. Then I can bring you down to a simmer. Okay. Okay. I have chosen the wrong size pans at every stage today. Excellent. Excellent. Boy, look at that beef boil. Look at that boiled beef boil. Here's what we're going to do to mitigate that. We're going to pour off those drippings into our big pan early. They're going in there anyways. And I need less moisture in this pan. So that's my solution. Already a much more vigorous sizzle. You're in Southern Oregon. As long as you soak it in milk. That is the case with many gamey things. It's recommended to be soaked in milk because the milk extracts the gaminess. Although I have also heard and experienced that soaking in alcohol or treating in alcohol reduces the gaminess. That is a Chinese cooking trick. You will see them add Shaoxing wine to fishy fish, gamey meat to eat away some of that flavor. And it is also used in Scandinavian cooking for curing fish. You put a little bit of aquavit on the gravlax, not just because you want a little bit of the aquavit flavor in your gravlax, but because the alcohol component of it pulls away some of the fishiness and helps it evaporate away. Try that. Dunk your squirrel in a vat of moonshine. See what it does. As do I, Queerly. As do I. Our big pot is at a boil, so we will reduce it to a simmer. There's no lid for that pot. Never has been. I want some. I don't just want the meat here to be gray. The reason I wanted to pour that liquid off is because if the beef just boils in its own juices, it ends up turning this, cooked beef color, the cooked beef brown. But I want some of the darker browning, some of that Maillard browning, because that's flavor, and you can't get that in a wet cook, because that kind of browning only happens above, I want to say it's 240 Fahrenheit. Bookwoman's on lurk. Thank you for the lurk. Oh, what time is it? 6:15. So I'm looking for a little bit of like brown spotting to form on the beef here. And then we will transfer it into the big pot. Oh, boy. And honestly, it's a recipe for a seafood gumbo. It's cook the flour, spices, and fat into a roux. So they want to put the spices right into the roux. Then add the onions, garlic, and peppers. Saute until soft. The garlic will burn, I think, if you put it in at that point. So I would skip that step. Then add the liquid, simmer, and they don't even fry off the sausages. They just put them right in the pot. Now I would definitely fry my sausages, but this, as a classic seafood gumbo, is the simplest thing in the world, which I love about this kind of food, where it is just take everything, throw it in a pot, delicious. Good browning forming on our beef. Pleased with the direction of that. Give it a little bit more time, but otherwise it's going in the pot real soon. Oh my God. Bob, 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 you can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. Oh, I don't even have one ready. I don't even have one ready. Oh my God. Oh my God. You gotta. Ugh. Moist. Thank you for the moisten, Bob. I did miss it. That is looking about as much browned as I could hope for, so I'm going to in the pot with it. Scrape down all of our drippings as well. And transfer the big pot to the front corner. Because now we're at the stage of concocting flavor. We can add things to the big pot as we feel we need more. Sorry, it was an especially slurpy moist. It was an especially slurpy moist. Oh my goodness, there were a whole flurry of follows. Thank you so much for the follows. I apologize for the moistness. Um, we're not putting the shrimp in until later, but we are going to throw the okra in now so that it can get its gooey goo getting to work. And because, of course, it's still raw, it needs to boil just to get cooked. Um, it should provide us with a nice, thick ending consistency. Now, a gumbo does not traditionally have tomatoes in it, to my knowledge. And is, as a result, often kind of a orangey brown color instead of a red color. Um, we could adjust that with paprika, like so. But I don't think it's ever going to go all the way to like a rich red unless I go with tomatoes. And I don't really want to go with tomatoes. I think we just want to make this a sort of this color. Also, quite a bit of delicious bacon fat collecting near the top, which is great. While that is getting on the simmer, we need to slide back over to the worktop. For these, this is the end of the Gulf shrimp that I had, ages ago now. We don't use these super often because several reasons. A chief one is they're a little bit awkward to use. They are not easy peel. They are not split. They are not deveined. They are whole shrimps, which means we got to pull the little veins out. They're also a little freezer burned because I left them there too long and they weren't vacuum sealed. So we do have to use them. So we will be using all of them today. I don't have a shrimp tool, so we're just doing it with scissors, which is fine. We're also saving the shells. Always save your shrimp shells if you like seafood stock-based things. Shrimp shells make for excellent seafood stock. What I should be doing is not like this. Not like this. Not like this. The finished ones should go in a bowl. And this board should not be here collecting shrimp juice. We can just do this directly over bowls. Because I don't really want to soak this board in shrimp juice. Ooh, he's he's got a real gnarly one. If I did this a lot, I would probably invest in a shrimping tool. There's a thing that just like does this in one motion. Um, but it is super duper a unitasker. It shells and deveins shrimps, and that's it of specific sizes, and that's it. But these are honestly the best shrimp that I've had at home. These ones right here. These are Gulf brown shrimp. They are the shrimpiest shrimp I've ever cooked with at home. You don't need very much of them to get a lot of shrimp flavor. They are this sort of slightly brown color even when raw. And they do pink up nicely when you cook them. And they're not from rather questionable farm circumstances that a lot of our mass-produced farm shrimps come from. And they're not shipped across an ocean to get here because they come from the Gulf of Mexico. Which isn't like close to me, but it's way closer than Vietnam. Oh, you know what? I neglected to shout out our raid. I was so distracted. I've only just... Yeah, the red shrimp, those are a lot more expensive than the brown shrimp. And also way harder to come by up here. But I've heard of them. I think I've only seen them around here once. That one's shell just kind of fell apart on me. Oop, but the shell did take the poop chute with it, so that's a bonus, I guess. I have visited, I live, of course, in the middle of the inland. There's no oceans near me. We do get fresh, I grew up next to Lake Michigan. So I do know something of fresh seafood, lake fish seafood, but I have also visited port fishing towns on two coasts, and yeah, it's real good. I'm aware. What is this red? The vein is like weirdly red on this one. I'm gonna just make sure I dig it out because I'm not sure what that means. Anything I just don't recognize on a piece of fish gets scraped out. I'll deal with the shells on my own time. Is gumbo a soup? I would argue... for yes, but the way it's served is not the way that you typically serve a soup. So, yes, asterisk, caveat. The way it's served is very much the way the Japanese serve a curry, with a pile of rice on the side. I'm not doing rice today. We're doing grits. But okay, now the board comes back. Here's my trick for shrimp, because shrimp can get quite pricey and you want to enjoy your shrimp. You take each shrimp and now you have 2 shrimp. I would say that gumbo falls into the same category as curry. It is clearly cooked in the way that you cook a soup or a stew, but it is generally served in a less soupy manner. This reminds me of the time the food industry, some genius marketing person in the food industry took a chicken wing, cut it in half at the elbow, and said, "Behold, I now have 2 chicken wings." And everyone just kind of went with that. In this case, I like doing this with shrimp because it gives you more shrimpy bites, more bites that contain a nice piece of shrimp. And with a strongly flavored shrimp like this one, you don't need actually more shrimp. You just want them to be more spread out. I'm tempted even to split them again this way and have like even more shrimp pieces. Let's do that. Also, if you cut them like this, when you cut them like this in half and you cook that, it naturally curls this way, which makes for some fun things. I've done that with a pasta. I used a shaped pasta, and then I cut the shrimps, and they curl. And then you've got these little curly shrimp pieces in with a little curly pasta piece, and they look very nice. I appreciate it and salute you for your service, Queerly. Yeah, I love the chatter. Yeah, also, I'm going to eat this with a spoon, so I'm cutting these shrimps down to a spoon size. And then they're going to go right in that pot whenever I feel like we're like close to it being done. Because we don't want them to overcook. Overcooked shrimp are sad. They get very chewy. this, our okra has gone from a bright green into a dull green. The okra is the only ingredient that I'm really concerned about being, like, cooked through. Because I don't really like the texture of undercooked okra. So we're going to fish one out, give it a bite, see what we think, and also test our flavor. Okra needs more time. It's a little bit too crunchy still. The whole thing, it's spicy, needs remember, I didn't add any just salt to this. I've only been using the beef powder. It needs some more, which makes sense. I did add like 4 cups of water to that. Reason I went with okra instead of filet, because I'm unfamiliar with how to cook with filet, and that is literally the only reason. Because because I have filet right here. What does it say? Sprinkle lightly over each serving of gumbo. To flavor and thicken, add half a teaspoon to the gumbo during cooking. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend eating your own face. They are notoriously difficult to replace. Tell you what, if this isn't thick enough, I will add some filet. But I think I'm going to take Tony's advice. Oh, people often complain that I make them hungry. Tony Shasheries, I think I might take Tony's advice and add a dash of this to the top of the finished plate. That could be a fun garnish. I was already going to add some scallions because I think they look very nice as a topper. Shout out to Tony. Shout out to Tony. Shout out to this brand name. Hey, Tony Shasheries, sponsor me. Definitely a bit too big of a pot. Let's taste our liquid. Oh, I forgot again. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgot twice. Oh. Oh. Well, a shout. Thank you, Bob, for bringing them here. It wants something. What does it want? Shrimp. For sure. It's already spicy enough. It's quite strong. I want it to thicken up a little bit. more. Oop, you guys are once again over there. I always forget. The shrimp will help the flavor, I think. What does it want? What does it want? What does it want? We opted for no andouille today because I would have had to thaw it out extra. But I think that's the flavor that my mind wants. So what are the spices in that? I could just go for the spices. It's more paprika, right? Garlic, thyme, paprika. Yeah, it's essentially the same spices. But what we're missing is the porkiness. We'll add some more smoked paprika. I guess I'm learning a lesson that I should just do some andouille sausage. I've got one. I've got a package in the freezer, but it's hard frozen, so it just would be a delay to use it. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is what the flavor profile is missing. Although the spice levels are good, I don't really want to add more spiciness to this. I can hear it thickening a lot too. So we're probably at the point where I want to push it to the back burner and run the front for grits. And put the shrimps in. Let's throw the shrimps in. Get them all nice and stirred in. We need a medium pot with a lid. All right, the pots are being reorganized, so they're all out on the table right now. It's 4-1 for grits. Oh, I forget now. Tell me. Yes, 4-1. 4-1 liquid for grits. What's a grit? Good question. Celery salt. There's celery in there. Ooh. Allspice mustard powder. There's already garlic in here. I'm not going to put in mustard powder, but you know what? You know what? Let's do a little cheat with just some mustard. Just some yellow ass mustard. Celery salt. I don't celery salt. Do I? I thought I used to, but what are you? Celery salt. I think that might help. Mustard. I'm not adding any sugar. There's plenty of sweetness from the vegetables. Allspice. Do I have a pre-grind so I don't have to grind my own? I've got whole. I usually use whole. I do have some ground in the back. Let me give that one an old refresho whiff. I think just a dash of allspice. I don't want it to taste of allspice, but I'll give it a go. Stir those in. I think the mustard is going to do the biggest, make the biggest change there. Also, it's getting, oh man, it immediately smells better. Good call, Ryuya. Good call. Oh yeah, the mustard made a difference. That mustard made a difference. The shrimp is looking reasonably cooked, so I'm going to turn that actually down so it just barely simmers. So what in here, I've got 3 cups of plain old water. Yeah, old-fashioned, normal water. In here, also normal water, but we're gonna make it not normal. I don't have any liquid milk right now, but we do have our dry milk. 1 cup is a 1/4 cup of dry milk. I prefer so it's 4 cups of liquid to 1 cup of dry cornmeal to make just a standard grits. I like one of those cups of liquid to be Flamingo. Thank you for the moisten. Moist. I like one of the cups to be milk, and I always like it to be the 4th cup. What do I mean by the 4th cup? Well, the way to make grits is 3 cups get boiled, 1 cup stays cold. And the cold one is used to prehydrate the dry cornmeal, which is yonder. You don't have to do this in a measuring cup. You can do this in a bowl. And in the time it has taken me to do this, our water has almost come up to a boil. You want a lid because that's how you make this. Where did I put that whisk? So the cornmeal needs to get wet. before it goes on the heat. Otherwise, it will aggressively clump. That's there. Slide back over. Our water is a-boiling. Before I add the cornmeal, we have one more ingredient to throw in there. Since I'm using milk powder is non-fat. Non-fat grits are sad. We are adding butter. Let that melt away. Butter makes everything better. Reason restaurant food tastes better than home cooking. Not every time, but an awful lot of the time is that the restaurant food puts a lot of butter in whatever they're making, and you didn't put nearly enough butter in at home. Get out our hydrated cornmeal milk mixture. Stir it about, make sure there aren't any lumps forming already. The prehydration should prevent lumps from forming at this stage, but sometimes you get some anyways. A whisk does the job. Take the heat way down. I don't know why I left the heat on. In fact, take the heat completely off. And lid it. Which is the way you do it with couscous as well. While that's getting to know itself, I want to add one final ingredient to it, and that is cheese. Crusty French bread. I do not. I have no crusty breads at the moment. Our starch of choice is grits. Great, now we have to make bread. No, my starch of choice is grits. I think it's my favorite starch to go with a gumbo. I don't think it's traditional. I think rice is the traditional starch accompaniment. Even though this dish is from America and thus from the land of corn. I need to do some bread baking. I especially want to get down a recipe for just a mini loaf. Because the problem I have with most loaves is that it is too much bread for me. I don't eat enough bread. And it is just me eating the bread to go through a full-size loaf before the end goes off. And I don't like that. So I need to work out a recipe and get an appropriate vessel for cooking, because I would like a sliceable, squared off loaf. Um, an appropriate vessel to make just a mini loaf, one that'll last a couple of days, so that I can reasonably eat the whole thing. Now, in the past, when I have made baguette, we have made baguette, um, those never go off because I eat them so aggressively because I love baguette. But baguette, real baguettes, they're not a, hey, let's make bread today level bread. They're a, hey, let's make bread tomorrow level bread. Um, which is fine, but sometimes you don't want to have to plan ahead. That's why I don't do dry beans so often, because you got to plan ahead on them, and I'm flighty and impulsive. Anyways, I'm throwing cheese. Some freshly grated, good old Wisconsin Colby cheese into my hot grits. We will do all of it. I also don't like sourdough, so I know that that is the classic, like, oh, just sourdough. I don't like sourdough. I'm sorry. Uh, that is one I am not on board with. I don't really like sourdough. I'll tolerate it, but I'm not going out of my way for it. Hey, we're gonna have leftover grits. We can do something with that. I think they're going to be excellent grits. Yes. And that's one of, like rice, leftover grits are just like a good thing to have for other stuff. Let's taste them for seasoning. They absolutely need some salt. Should have put the salt in the water. I'm also going to give them some pep. Should have salted the water just lightly. I could use them in a savory pie. I could, because they tend to set up by the next day into a much less soft state than this, much less mashed potatoey than this. You can like cut little pucks out of them and fry it, which is great. Taste a root. Yes, I love grits. I know they're not for everyone. I know some people absolutely hate them. Like, grits, why would you do that when you can have something else? But they're one of my favorites. Also, look how much you get. Anyways, they are ready. The gumbo itself has formed a... Oh, my spoon is that one, or my spatula is that one. The gumbo itself formed a little bit of a skin while it was broiling away. Let's Yes. Oh, good call on those spices. And that's what we're doing. That's the gumbo. That's the grits. Good call on those spices, Ray. That absolutely took us where we wanted to. I think it's actually tastes a little bit less fatty, but I also am only tasting the broth. So once I get into the chunky bits, that should resolve. I believe. I hope. Which means we're on to plating. Grits and chocolate gravy. Chocolate gravy. Like a savory gravy with a chocolate flavor in it. Interesting. If that's what you meant. Otherwise, if it's a sweet one, then I'm confused. Anyways, we are slide to the worktop. I'm not gonna beat around the bush with plating. This is the ideal plate for this. Serve up a generous mound of the stuff. Clean up our plate a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to bring the plate to the stuff because that will be much easier to dollop out. And there we have it. I do have to clean up the plate for the drips. Nice flair with the drips. Thanks, Bob. Let's try a little bit of filet. Stuff's a little clumpy. Ooh, it's root beer. I knew that. I don't know why I'm surprised. I knew that. That's what you make root beer out of. I probably could have cut that a lot higher and given it more to work with. That's okay. Extras can go in the pot. a spritz of fresh scallion to help the thing pop visually. A crumb of butter that got on my cutting board, I guess. The rest of those can go in the pot. And I'm going to come back with one last garnish that I saw just the other day while I was watering my herbs. One of them is trying to shoot up a little flower spike, which I think, first of all, I don't want it to do that, but also I think that'll look nice as a decorative flare. A decorative flare of a little flower. It's Cuban oregano. It is a Cuban oregano. Let's go take a picture of this and then come back. Oop, my camera station is covered in popcorn and fish. Here, I bought this today. Surprise. It's a lot of bonito flakes. This was the only size package they had. And it was $6. And I go there often looking for bonito flakes because I can't find them usually. And they had them today, so I grabbed some. Anyways, let's see how I did. Let's see how I did in this. We want a little bit of everything. Okra's nice and tender. Beef's got a little bit of chew, but it's not chewy. Just giving us the texture. With the grits, the heat is very tempered down. I think by the end of the plate, I'll be feeling a good burn, but at the moment it's just a kiss. Which I know I probably should amp that up with something, but this is comfort food for me, and I don't want it to be burning my face off hot to be comfy. It's real good, guys. It's savory. It's savory, it's rich. It's got a pretty beef forward flavor. The beef, like I said, has some chew, but isn't chewy. Likewise, the shrimp, I think I actually left the shrimp in a little bit too long. They're also a little chewy. Not too bad. With the buttery, cheesy grits, all of the rich spices really balance out. And I was a little bit of an extra by cooking stuff in a pan and then adding it to the pot bit by bit. You really could do this as a one pot if you wanted. you would forego browning on the meats, which is especially would be a bit of a loss if you do include andouille, because I think having the browning on the surface of an andouille is really delicious. That would probably be the one flavor that is missing here. That would also give us a little bit of color variation. There's no red in the finished part there, but that's fine. I'm going to say good call, especially on the mustard. I think the mustard brought in that missing flavor and a little bit of acidity. There was no acidity in it, and I think that's also what was throwing me off initially. But the mustard has some vinegar in it, and the vinegar gave us a little bit of acidity. So I think a shot of mustard is going to be on my radar for future things like this. I, of course, served it the way Japanese curry is served, with the rice on one side and then the curry sort of draped along the opposite side. There's not a ton of vinegar in prepared mustard, but it definitely benefits from a little bit of acidity. I probably would have eventually talked myself around to adding a splash of probably cider vinegar. I think it benefits from that, and I don't think it was on my mind as a missing component, but it definitely boosted. If I did add mustard powder, I also would have added less of it, because mustard powder tends to be quite potent compared to the prepared mustard. Especially since I don't have mustard powder, I have mustard seed. So I would be grinding my own and then putting it in there, which would give us a slap you in the face level mustard. Yeah, I guess there's not a lot to say. I guess I've never had a beef gumbo before. That's the difference. And I haven't had a lot of beef recently at all because of cost. This was, like I said, chuck. It was marketed as chuck, beef chuck for stir fry, but it was definitely butcher trimmings from making roasts or steaks or whatever, and they just threw them in a package, which benefit to me, as they were inexpensive, and then they were also marked down. So. I usually make my go-to is either all seafood or chicken, shrimp, andouille, which is, I know, the jambalaya combo. Like the recipe that I was looking at as just a reference is a seafood gumbo that has shrimp, catfish, and oysters, which sounds great. And then I go with a chicken thigh, because chicken thigh is cheap, has that fatty component to it, gives us more meat without investing in expensive seafood. Seafood tends to be quite costly, so I dial it back. That's the real reason. That's the real reason. The shrimp that we did use today I think might have been in the freezer just a little bit too long. It definitely lost some of that intense shrimpy flavor that it had previously had. So it's good that I used it up. Let's isolate one, just to be sure. No. By itself, isolated, still has that, like, shrimp flavor. Like, you're eating a shrimp. So I guess the other flavors are just strong enough to kind of tap that down. Yeah, I guess I don't have much more to say today. Good job, good work all around. I'm not going to disparage myself, Bob, like I did last week. Just good job, good all around. I'm not sure I'm tasting the filet in the finished dish. It's very subtle. We could try it as a thickener in the future. I actually, this is a little bit thinner than I really prefer. So we could have thrown a teaspoon of it in the actual pot as a thickener. But I don't mind too much. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to sign us off. Because that's delicious, and I want to eat it while it's still nice and hot. Gumbo. My gumbo, which, as with most of my food, is made largely of what I have on hand. So I did buy the okra specifically. I did buy that bell pepper specifically because I didn't have any at the moment, but I usually have those on hand, so that's not an issue. And then it was the shrimp that I had available and some beef that I found in the bargain bin. My God, that thing last week was very good. I've also been thinking about what you could do with that in different ways, and I've got some notions. For one thing, I think the big monkfish roast thingy, which is in there somewhere, would be a really nice centerpiece for that. Also, I said more butter. What if it was bacon? What if there was doing hand things? What if there was bacon? Bacon and monkfish, because monkfish is a lean fish, so you'd want to add some fat. So the salmon was quite fatty, and that was kind of what benefited, was the fat rendered in and boosted it up. Monkfish is a much leaner fish. Cod would be a much leaner fish. You'd have to add some more fat. You could add butter. Butter would be very delicious. What if you added bacon? I know no one likes bacon. I know. Hot take. Anyways, that one was really good. Thank you guys for showing up and sticking with me today. I was having kind of a rough day. I've been really down. As I mentioned, really stressed about current events. I'm not very far away from said current events, and it is on my mind. So thank you guys. This has been lovely. I always like seeing you. This does really legitimately energize and cheer me up when I get to show up and hang out with you guys. And then I get delicious food at the end as well. Yeah, so thanks. Thanks to you. And also, thanks to, wow, 4 followers today. Thanks to all the follows. Thanks to Bookwoman for the resub. Thanks to Chef Pete Snaith and Bob for the raid. Let's see who's on. Let's see who we can drop y'all off in the face of. Ooh. Last week we saw Earth Toast, who was in the shower. We could go say hi to Earth Toast in the kitchen and get a, like, normal stream. In fact, I might do that, just because I bet you some of you haven't seen a normal Earth Toast. Just wet Earth Toast. So, yeah, we will go there. Tomato soup cake and a Greek yogurt cheesecake, which is 2 cakes, which sounds crazy. You can complain about the lack of shower. I followed for shower content. What's this? Exactly. Right, as always, on top of the game with the raid messages, Little Dancing Dinosaurs if you are not subscribed, and my little happy face there if you are subscribed. Yeah, we are officially out of the high season for workload with the inventory we just blasted through this weekend. So I should be able to start peppering in bonus streams. I know, the Hot Pockets don't have the little thingy anymore. What's even the point? Nonsense. Nonsense. Anyways, let's go say hi to Earth Toast and see what she's all about when she's not showering. She's wearing a strawberry, like, big fuzzy bathrobe thing. I know. I'm sorry. I also want to do more Lego stuff. There's a Lego set. Also, I forgot. My birthday is coming. My birthday is next weekend. So my next stream will be a birthday stream. So stay tuned for that. Jeez, I forgot about that. Cripe's sake. So see you then. Wave you out. Surprise. Oh.